our first conversation for this morning, and it's all about the 13th Amendment, that proposed bill in the National Assembly that we're learning more and more about as the weeks go by. And to give us some further insight, some legal perspectives on this topic, we have joining us on set this morning none other than attorney at law Audrey Matura. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, and I hope I could give you all some political perspective as well as some social perspective, because it has those kind of implications too. But thank you for having me. I mean, it's a matter that's very close to my heart for the Belizean people, so I'm glad to be here to explain whatever you all want.
I think that it was very, very kind of you, first of all, to share your experience with the online public last week on Wednesday, because for as much as it was open to the public, I feel like majority of the public was not present. So it was, I think, very important that there was there was somebody there to say, everybody else who couldn't make it, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
I think that first, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the 13th Amendment, we've been hearing a lot of legal minds having this conversation. But when we ask the general public, I don't know if you saw it in our news item last week, majority of people still don't really understand what it is.
Yeah.
And the reality is that it's already kind of embedded into our law. They're just now trying to put it into the Constitution.
Yeah.
So for our viewers and for the sake of those that might not really understand the legal jargon, what is this?
Well, I think if I want to put it into simple layman terms that we could feel like myself would understand, it is ensuring that we create a police state. And I say create a police state because it's a law that is ensuring that within our Constitution, the police can act with a lot of power. Now, the danger with that is that we know historically, and even recent, we've seen it, that police are not known to be able to control themselves when given power. So imagine they have power right now, and there's what we would call in their job, in the way they perform it, corruption. So giving them this absolute power, they will be even more corrupt. They will go unchecked. I want to say immediately that a lot of people who have criticized what we've said, which is the minority, say that we as attorneys are against it because the criminals are our best friend and we will have work if the criminals keep running about. And I need to explain this up front. One, the criminals, if they're locked up like that, we will have more work because they have rights and we can still sue the government for locking them up without reason. Two, the criminals that are running about and some that commit murder, people don't know it, but it's already your taxpayers' money paying for their legal representation. Our law says, and it's in our Constitution, that if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided to you when it comes to murder. Nobody can have a murder hearing without an attorney. So that is the level of ignorance we have in this country, where people don't realize that, hey, no matter what you say, you're paying. And you say we attorneys are benefiting from crime. Let me put this on the record again. Attorneys who practice before the criminal bar are very few. We have over 200 attorneys, and you always see about a handful of maybe 6 or 10 the most practicing before the criminal bar. That's not where the money is. The remainder are in the corporate world. That's where we litigate. I do very few criminal matters because what I will get paid to do a criminal matter is far less, trust me, far less than if I sue the government. So if you lock up these men and I decide to say, you know what, I'm going to specialize only in this, that's where my money will come from. And we will win the government, even if we go to the CCJ. So the millions that the government will end up paying these people, you will still be paying it for it. So best, let's take those millions and rehabilitate those people.
You say the government, it really is the taxpayers.
Yes, the
dollar.
government meaning the taxpayers. I've not done a case yet where I've sued the government that I have not won, and that's Gazette. But those are the cases that don't make the news because you don't know that's where our money come from.
You spoke about a police state. In this proposed legislation, based on my understanding, and I could be corrected, the police can't act, how will they say it, this in a vacuum. There has to first be, there's a process that begins with the Governor General and the National Security Council. So the police can't just go out and do these things, use these powers without first the higher ups, one of the highest offices in the country, the Governor General, advised by the National Security Council. Doesn't that then create a balance?
No,
where
no.
this thing is
The
concerned?
Governor General and the National Security Council will not be out there when they are performing. The difference is, you could say, oh, the Governor General have to stamp it. Let me tell you, no insult to our Governor Generals over the year, but they have actually no input. They're just a rubber stamp. That remains the system in Belize. The National Security Council will be right there biased because they're all people who have worked in this field. So they will not look at the social impact. They will not look at all the other impact. They will look like, oh, the optics, we need to solve it now. And so then they go to the Governor General. Have you ever seen the Governor General refuse to sign anything put before him or her? Never. Because it's not their role to be a check and balance. It's their role to just stamp. Remember, they're a head of state. This go back to 101 constitutional law, where we are a constitutional democracy, where our head of state remains the king, because there's a king now, and the Governor General is his representative here, with absolutely no power to debate or say. Yes, the law says that if they're not satisfied with certain people, they could move them. They've never used it because of the political crisis that would create. So although the law does say what you say, it says that the Governor General, so let me read it so people know. An order made by the Governor General under this section shall not be effective unless it contains a declaration that the Governor General is satisfied, on the advice of the National Security Council, on reasonable grounds, that the declaration of the area as a special area is necessary in the interest of public safety or public order in specified areas, or for the purpose of preventing, detecting, or controlling crime in the area. That's a lot being said there.
Yeah, it is.
As you notice, it says the Governor General must be satisfied. So the Governor General have to have basis on which to say, I will accept this legislation. But the truth is, the Governor General doesn't go out and check for him or herself. It's the National Security who will say, I think you should put a declaration.
Right.
Is that where the reasonable grounds come from?
Yeah.
Based on reasonable grounds.
Unreasonable grounds.
Where is that?
It's a figment of their
Right.
imagination.
Who
It's the
determines the
politicians who are
reasonable grounds?
desperate, unable to solve crime, who say, boy, we have to use this. When I went to the presentation and I did that live, it's because I realized that it's the only consultation they would have, and I thought people should hear. I reached like maybe 20 minutes after it started. At that time, the representative for the police, Assistant Commissioner Bart Jones, was telling the people why we needed this legislation, and I never forgot his term. He said, it's a modern tool for policing, to help police. It's not modern. Dean Barrow put this in law since 1993. It's under the Crime Control and Criminal Justice Act. Before that, the legislation was a different name, and I brought all of that. If we have time, I will dissect it for you all. But it is not new. Let me tell you what's a modern tool. When they told all of us that we had to register our cell phones because they will track crime street, tell me which case has been solved by tracking anyone's cell phone. You know what the criminals do? They thief your phone and they're using your number, or I don't know how they manage to get phone registered under people's name, but they have burned phones. So that's, using technology is a modern tool of policing.
But where the reasonable ground is concerned, saying on that part of the legislation, was that not one of the contentions in court when the state of emergencies were challenged? The government or the authorities had the weight of trying to prove that there was reasonable grounds to instate a state of emergency in the instance of the 2020 state of emergency, but they were unable to do that.
And so they lost that case.
Right, so they lost that case. It proved to be insufficient, the reason, the rationale, at least in that case.
Right, but then there was another case where a different judge held differently, but you have to look at each case separately as to what was reasonable grounds. So what would be, they didn't define reasonable grounds. So
they didn't.
Reasonable grounds, so it's a state of emergency, because so the public know, what they're really doing is the same state of emergency that has not worked all these years is being placed in our constitution. And the reason it's being placed in the constitution is because it's been written in a way that you can't challenge it, because all those SOEs that have happened, if we attorneys want, we could find every one of those people and sue the government and we'll win. And the government realized that. Some of us, although they give bad names to the attorneys, we did not take it on, but a few decided, let's do it. So what this is doing, they're saying, okay, this state of emergency, if we place it in the constitution, when it is happening, because the constitution, which is your supreme law, is saying, all your constitutional rights are suspended during that time. So let me give it in an example. So they declare your area a special area, and they're looking for Tom Harry because they believe that he's a criminal. And somebody told them, hey, Immigranda Paul House, and maybe he's related to your wife or a distant cousin or somebody you went to school with, and maybe they did pass and say hi. Police, not believing you're hiding that person, will not call you and say, hey, your friend may pass by, then just broke into your house. Hold you, search you, hold you and your wife for a couple hours or for the more than 48 hours.
Temporarily removing your rights.
Because your right is suspended. Your right. So right now, one of your rights is that police cannot just arbitrarily enter and search your house. But under this suspension, they can arbitrarily enter and search your house. One of your rights is that you have the right to an attorney, but because of this provision, you can't call an attorney. One of your rights is that if they don't charge you within 48 hours, they have to release you, but that right has been suspended. You won't be released. One of your rights is that you also have, when detained, your family can come visit you. All of those rights are suspended. Why? Because they have reasonable grounds to believe that this is a hot area or a special area, and so it doesn't matter if you're a law-abiding citizen. Your right for that moment is suspended. Even your right now we have a right to record what's happening. At that point, they can take away your phone because your right to hold property has been suspended. All your rights from Section 2 to Section 18 of the Constitution are being suspended.
So then should people be afraid or feel a sense of security knowing that a state of emergency or that my area has been declared a special area when there's an escalation of crime within my community? Afraid that police is going to knock down my door, or safe and secure that then they deal with this situation and me and my picnic could walk the street and go to shop, go buy, knowing that we can come back home.
Okay, I like how you put that. So it could go either way. I've seen one or two people say, oh, well, if I'm not involved in a life of crime, so me not have to worry that only for the criminals. You're wrong. For two reasons. The police may not necessarily know that you're not really involved in a life of crime, because sometimes they profile you based on some relative or something, or misinformation by your own neighbors who now want to spite you, and they say, hey, oh, no, this, but you see that Paul there? He only up on TV, they pretend drugs they pass through. And so you don't know who is malicious. They come to your house. You don't know where they get the information from, because they don't have to tell you, because they only have to have reasonable suspicion, and someone squealing on you is reasonable suspicion. So you, the law-abiding citizen, could be affected. Or it could be that, look, you are really law-abiding and everything like you say, but one of the police officers have a grudge against you because you end up the play with freaking girlfriend. Well, you never know you play with freaking girlfriend. And Belize is so small, you never know. And I've seen this happen to me, where I dealt with a case and I never knew this one was a family and why they hate me. So here you are now, you're just doing your business, but police is Ali MFE. I mean, always want to tell. No. So they use their power, and it has happened. It has happened.
Belize is small.
And you are now roughed up in the system, but they're not worried because they think, oh, under the Constitution, Paul's rights are suspended, and I can proceed and do that, and he won't be able to.
Will I be able to challenge it?
And no, well, and the other thing, and I am paralleling to the U.S. now. You saw how the presidents of the U.S. say, oh, only illegal immigrants we will take out, but even the legal ones got affected, because the minute you allowed the suspension of the rights of everyone equally, you created the room where proper innocent people are being affected. And what did they do? They all brought masks. So usually when I do a case, and I've done several, I have to say, do you know who the police officer is? Because you have to name them. No, these masked people, no badge or anything. Because what you all are missing is that in this legislation, there's a special provision where they can appoint an auxiliary force. Now, we don't know who the auxiliary before, so we already know who is the command police officer. But we don't know, and I'm giving the extreme, right? So here they appoint people where the former police officers or people who are politically appointed because, well, I know the minister and I need one job, man. So we are bringing them from Orange Rock, and we are bringing them from Corozal, we are bringing them from PG. We are giving them this power, and their mask and everything. You are a special auxiliary, you're getting paid. You don't know who I am. So I go into your house and do all of that. How do you know who this person is? So you have the anonymity of that person that affects your ability to complain as to who they are. And remember what I told you. Because all your right is suspended, you cannot be recording. And if you have cameras, they can remove that. So anything that would have helped your case is removed. And yes, you could go fight it, but with limited evidence. So you will just say against the government, and a number of people went, you can't even pinpoint, you don't even have a recording like some people at least have now, because all your rights are suspended. And when I say that, Belizeans, don't take it lightly. We have such liberties and rights that you take for granted. The fact that I could get up and drive any hour of the day is a right. On an SOE, they could put a curfew. So now you need to get to open your eyes by 6 o'clock, but you can't leave your house 5:30 because what? You have to get here. And you might go and they say, okay, we can give the media a special pass, so you get one. But what happened to the security officer who has to go, who happens to be a poor black man, who then they have all kind of things to say about? It increases all the other problems, and it will not work. You see, if it would work, I would quickly say, let's do it. But we had SOE 2018. And from thereafter, we've had up to just this year. Has it reduced crime? No. Has it reduced the severity of crime? No. Has it reduced the amount of people living a life of crime? No. Has it reduced poverty, that is one of the factors in crime? No. Has it improved police surveillance? No. My problem is that the basic police work that could help solve crime, they're not using.
But Audrey, we've been here before. It almost seems a little bit of a deja vu that we've been having this conversation about putting certain legislations like this into the Constitution. I don't know if them like 10 years ago or so, if I can recall.
Yes.
And it didn't work. They didn't do it. But what was happening then that it didn't occur, as it would be different now?
I like when you ask me the history. So in 1993, when the United Democratic Party instituted this legislation, I was a news reporter. I remember going to the press conference. Dean Barrow said that they'll declare hot spots. And they had passed a law, I don't remember the name of it because it eventually merged into the Crime Control and Criminal Justice Act. At that time, I remember one of the first areas that was locked down was by that Queen Square Market area. And who were some of the first victims? The vendors who come from our district to bring their produce. And they still didn't capture any hard criminal and convict them. On the contrary, some of those suspected criminals that I knew existed, when I came back as an attorney, were campaigning for certain politicians, were the ones driving the voters to certain houses to get paid to go vote. So that's the hypocrisy of it. So I try to keep my mouth shut, because next thing they can shoot me for telling the truth. But thank God some of those criminals have since died because they kill up each other. But it takes me to the point where we hear the politicians, they say it, and the heads of police saying, we know who they are. So if you know who they are, why are you locking up all of us? Why are you locking down my whole area? Go after them. You know why they don't go after them? Because some of the same senior public officials and some of the same politicians are connected with them and the drug trade.
What sort of policing then works to target these sort of flare-ups in these hot spots or in these special areas that does not include this level of force and this type of constitutional legislative backing?
Okay, so I'm old enough to tell you there was a different technique of policing years ago. Years, at least 5 decades ago and long before that. Basic policing used to be, well, you already know who are the criminal elements, so you have a profile on them. But long before we have cameras and stuff like that, what we had were police who actually go and do the beat. They're on the ground. Now it's easier. So let's say I suspect that Paul is running drugs and guns. I don't want to get in trouble. I could call names of people running guns and drugs and helping these young men. And if you all pull up footage of when Dean Baruch had the truce with some of them, because a lot happened under the UDP. You see all their faces there. Some of them came with masks, some of them came with their bold face. So you know these are the people. So how come police are not doing their surveillance of their movements? A basic thing. Now we have drones. Now we have the capacity to wiretap. We have capacity to listen on your phone. And we have basic police surveillance. You know what always amazed me? When I hear the news that says, found property on an empty lot and so much gun and bullets. Two things happens there that I can with certainty say. One is that I've had clients who are criminals. And they tell you a lot. When they trust you, they tell you a lot. And some of them tell you plain, mommy, sometimes they catch me drugs, you know. But the same police tell me, if I hand in so much gun and bullet, they'll let me go. Or if I give you so much pound of weed, they'll let me go. I have one where I recorded it when the police went to pick up the drugs from the garbage can where they put it, but the person refused to testify and refused to go through the process.
So there is a blatant corruption between both entities.
So that's the one part of that. The second part, if you really know that abandoned gun and you won't just pick it up and carry it, you know, fingerprint or anything. If I get intelligence that at lot 70, there is abandoned property, you think I want just go pick that up? Hell no.
Yeah.
I want to have somebody to do the surveillance because somebody will come and pick it up. It's like when at customs they had found weapons in a barrel or whatever, and I'm not talking about the recent one, and they didn't know who it was going to be for, or they prematurely jump at it. I would have made the person come, collect it, carry it, and then stop them. So it's basic common sense police work.
But what you are talking about, Ms. Matura, with surveillance, that's about collecting evidence so that you don't run afoul of the law when you're doing your policing. One, I think surveillance takes time,
of
right?
Course.
Yeah. And so
and money.
In the immediacy of a flare up, you need to take action. And we know that those committing criminal acts, they also know their rights to an extent to say you can't come in at my house and arrest me or lock me up or
that's
search me
evidence.
outside of a state of emergency or a special area.
That's a lie.
Declared.
That's a lie.
Oh, you say they don't know they don't know their rights?
No, that's a lie that you can't do that.
Okay.
So this is it. So remember, under the police legislation and under the Constitution, if we know, we get good information, there's no SOE, this is a regular crime fighting. If we hear that there's a flare-up at a house, maybe some crime is happening or some drugs they pass, you don't need an SOE to go in. Police have the right. This is what people don't understand, that what they want to enshrine in the Constitution and without even an SOE, police have the right, as it is, to go in any house and search for drugs and for weapons.
With a warrant?
Without a warrant. That's a right the police have. They took away that right from us a long time ago. That's the only 2 times that police can go without a warrant. I recently did a case where, again, we won the government because they went into the guy's house without a warrant, and they came claiming to be searching for
drugs,
for unlicensed firearm. It turned out he did have his licensed firearm. It was a constitutional case. We won it on all the points, and it's a very technical thing. But why? Yes, police had the right to go into his house, arbitrarily search for drugs and ammunition. But in this case, they hadn't done their proper work. Their proper work was the records would have shown that the person had a licensed firearm. They searched and they found nothing incriminating.
So even if the evidence is circumstantial at best, they still have the right to go in.
Yes, they do. They do. And you see, but so if you challenge it, so they bust into Paul's house because we can't think they happened there. You don't have to have a warrant. It's a drug or possibly ammunition offense, or it could be a murder. Even for murder, you could go in because remember, police duty is to prevent crime, to detect crime, to act on it when it happens, and to help prosecute it at the end.
So then if this is all law, if this is already embedded into our legal system,
it's
why
the police
put it
failing
into...
to do it. This is the point I'm trying to make. Police already have all the equipment legally to do what they have to do. It's poor police training, poor resources to the police, poor police work, and they want Sorry, that's my alarm.
That's the cue for us to take a break. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to jump into that, those all important social and political perspectives as well. You don't want to miss this conversation. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
As an athlete, orthopedic health is very important. Our bodies can be so strong and yet still so delicate. Injury is something that we cannot prevent. We could try to mitigate the risk of extreme injuries. However, it is very, very important that you know and understand your body.
As we get older, our bones are getting softer. It's hard to treat degeneration which already happened. The first treatment is a lifestyle modification and the support of physiotherapists. I am Dr. Sergey Adonin, an orthopedic surgeon, and we are watching Caribbean Medical TV.
Be viewing Caribbean Medical TV on this station.
My name is Leomar Langzert, and I'm a teacher, and I bank with Belize Bank Independence Branch. What I enjoy is to see if the features that the app offers. I have a sense of not having to worry or be concerned about somebody finding my password and username to sign in the application because of the use of the one-time password. And another feature that I love, that I use the most, is how the app synchronizes with my fingerprint on my device. I enjoy the rapid and easy, seamless process to apply for loans through the Belize Bank, and I don't have to be having too much back and forth to visit or take time to visit the bank. They also start to offer the online applications through the app for loan applications, which I believe is very neat. I would definitely recommend Belize Bank to other teachers because one of all the features and advantages that the app offer with these online that Belize Bank offered is basically everything that you can do in the palm of your hand. So I would definitely recommend the bank to other teachers.
Welcome back to Open Your Eyes. We are here with attorney at law Audrey Matura. Conversation still surrounding the 13th Amendment. And of course, we wanted to jump into a different type of conversation with this topic. Like we had mentioned earlier, this particular amendment, they were trying to implement it under the Barr administration about 11 years ago, more or less.
Yes.
And it didn't happen, right?
Yes.
The attorneys came together and they opposed it. But we still haven't found any solutions apart from this.
Okay, so let's go to the history. 1993, it was part of the law under the Crime Control and Criminal Justice Act. They amended that law and in 2000, I think, and that's when they got the new name.
Okay.
So when it was first implemented by the then Barrow administration, the then opposition was up in arms saying it wasn't good, and I wish you all could find clips where they were up in arms. Anyway, nothing really much happened out of it. I gave you the example when the first area that was declared, how it affected the vendors. It just mellowed down, and they realized that part of the problem was that not so much that we don't know who the criminals are, but we were not able to convict these criminals. So again, there was a flare-up, and in 2011, the then Barrow administration again said, let us introduce preventative detention. So it's important to know the history to know why this has not worked. So I have a little clip here of what Mr. Barrow had said in the National Assembly. This was in May of 2011. He says, if we succeed in changing the Constitution, what we are doing is to introduce into the Constitution an enabling provision. In other words, as things now stand, you can't have a law that provides for the detention of citizens for more than 48 hours without a charge being laid, without being taken before a court, because the Constitution prevents that from happening. So this is what, so you know the law. You have 48 hours within to charge the person. You can't do it. The Constitution is protecting you that right. Good police work will mean that they will be able to arrest and charge you within 48 hours. And if you don't have it, that's mean you failed to investigate. But then you already, and you know what's interesting about Belize? Because I worked at the DPP's office. I was a prosecutor. And I'll tell you what is one of the problems. The police basically do usually get the right person. They have good intelligence, but they have very poor evidence gathering techniques. They believe that everything that will beat one confession out of them. So we then go into a void there, and of course you will not win on a confession like that. So instead of doing police work. So you don't send at the hand, you don't find out through a statement at the hand. Why you never gonna take fingerprint at the gun? Sometimes basic fingerprint, which is an old technique, is not being done. Thank God we have some cases where we've won by DNA. A basic thing, so one of the things that we attorneys managed to get out of court to defeat the cases is surveillance footage. There's a technique that you have to use, there's a way you have to do, there's a chain of custody and basic chain of custody. I had a case where the man who recorded the video cannot be found, but yet the police won't put in the evidence. So why the person can't be found is a whole different story. But the thing is, there was another way you could have gotten that same information, but you failed to do the chain of custody. Basic legal
Police
techniques
work.
what is not audit to me, the attorney. Police have attorneys now, several, but where are they using that expertise? The DPP office is more staff now. The DPP office and the police have to work hand in hand to get guidance. When it's convenient, they say, and you've been at press conference, we've not pressed charges yet, we've sent the file to the DPP. But when they're ready, you don't get charged. You never go under the DPP. So it's poor. We don't want to accept it. It's poor police work. So when they say they need more tools, they don't really want more tools.
Have you sought to consider what fuels or contributes to this level of lawlessness that we're seeing within certain communities? Is it a case where you just have man where just angry with each other and they want to take revenge because, well, you do something to my family or my friend, so I'll do it back? Or is there a deeper social ill that one has to consider and address?
Okay. We are going now into the root of the problem and the long-term solutions. While I may not be no anthropologist and sociologist and everything, I do read a lot, and I've been on the ground. I've been in the prison system to work with young people. I've worked with a lot of victims of abuse, and honestly, I don't even have to invent the answer. The answer was given to us by Dr. Herbert Gale, whom you've had on the show several times, and which is, and I think I brought up, I want to quote a part that he used. I hope I printed the part that he said, listen to this. His was his closing remark at page 400 of the report he did. He says, the 274 youths involved in this aspect of the study went to great lengths to express how much the social structures have failed them, left them unsupervised, unplanned for, that's unplanned pregnancies, and without a sense of direction. Left on their own, many have got into trouble with the law and with their friends and neighbors. Consequently, many of them have been abused in various ways as they have no protective frame, neither from family nor the state. Their cry throughout the pair was that they do not want any more of the trouble. However, they ask that the social providers take the trouble to keep them out of trouble. Please, and he quoted what one of them says, "We don't want no trouble. Just help us through the troubled years. Who knows what we can become? Who knows?" Close of quotation.
I really like this.
That sums it up.
Yeah.
So I'm all enough to give you a little historical background. In the 70s, and maybe it started before, but in the 70s when I was growing up, a lot of our parents left Belize for a better life. That was just before independence. It so happened that a lot of the people who left were the Creole families. And a lot had to do with politics and a bit of racism too. So a lot of Belizeans left to the US, and it was easy to leave then, to get a visa and become legal there. When they left, many of them didn't take them children. Up to today, I meet children who feel that sense of abandonment, that their mom and their dad left and may have had more children there and never came. These same children now are being taken care of by granny, who too old, auntie, we don't have 12 picnic own, uncle went on drunkard, and these children then were left more on the streets. They became involved in drugs. They became involved in early sexual activity. They were just mischievous. And just about that time, in the 80s, this movie, Colors, came out with war and gang. And the human nature is that we all want to belong. You see how you have your family and how happy you are with your wife and your child and how that makes you feel? You as a grown man could remember how it felt different, not having that immediate unit of yours and the joy it is now. Those children have never experienced that. The joy your daughter is feeling from now that she could feel the love even though she can't express it, those children never had that. So here you have a damaged brain. It comes down to basic human behavior now. You have a damaged brain to function in a society that have rules that you can't comply with because you never got the love, the discipline, the structure at home. That's why when that study says that they're saying the family structure failed them and the societal structure failed them, it is true.
Some people argue that this position takes away from these individuals taking personal responsibility for their actions and for their behaviors, and you know, it's an argument that's out there, perhaps not against, but to add to what you're saying.
I'm glad you're the devil's advocate today, because it is not taking away responsibility from them. You'd have to understand and study more about the human being to understand why some of us survive and the other of us don't survive. So I came from a very abusive home situation. I could have ended up on the streets. My brothers could have ended up on the street. My sisters could have ended up on the streets. So what is the difference? I can openly tell you all that I went through therapy. I had to go through a whole realization to realize that I wasn't prepared in the family structure to help me. So what happens when you are in those terrible situations is that you need to survive. You're a child, you're in survival mode. And you have to find something to hold on to. It's unfortunate that we're split in two. There are those of us who hold on to a positive addiction, and there's those of us who hold on to a negative addiction. Those of us who held on to a positive addiction have survived. But we are not all same. Some of us are weaker in mind, and so those of us who held on to the negative addiction are the ones who are the problem.
The cliche survival of the
So what makes the difference? What makes the difference? So I like to use myself as an example. So I didn't know all of this when I was growing up. I was in survival mode. Every time my dad beat the shit out of me, I had more anger, and I used to think how I could kill this MFE. So you have built up all this anger, and if placed in the wrong environment, I may have become a killer. Think about it. But the more my dad told me that I wasn't good enough, the more I said I was sure this living mother, you know what, that's not me. So I did not realize I took on a very obsessive addiction of becoming a workaholic. And it is that workaholic in me that made me achieve. But it doesn't make me an unbroken person, you know. It just makes me a traumatized person who happened to take on an addiction that addiction led to positive results. So when I end up being sick and then almost died, and I triggered my traumas and triggered my PTSD, and I became unscrambled, I could see myself being two different persons. And I asked my therapist, how come I operated all these years that I thought I was perfect? I worked hard, I did everything right. And then he explained to me how trauma works and why my positive addiction helped me. Now take on another relative of mine, who I won't say his or her name, who had the same environment, got a lot of beating. What did he become? An alcoholic, a drug user, unable to keep a family. But what were the addictions? Growing up, he or she's addiction was to go around the neighborhood and fight with the kids, to thief money from people, little 5 cents, 10 cents. So that person did not have the same trajectory. Up to today, that person denies that he or she has a trauma. But when he or she drinks and the trauma comes out, the sense of abandonment and abuse, and that person cries like a baby, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
But
So that's not the answer the politicians want to hear. They're like, Audrey, you're too soft on that. But laws and societies are created by individual human beings, and we are broken human beings that are going into crime, and we don't want to solve that because that song too nice. We want to lock them up.
But I want to end by this conversation because time has been done.
Yeah.
Time gone long time,
Oh
Audrey.
my gosh.
But I really wanted to pinpoint these 4 different solution based on Dr. Gale's study
Yes.
that you brought,
Yes.
because I think that we want to fast pace and solution everything now,
Yes.
right? And in his book, which I really appreciated, he has here the 4. Well, he has more, but we're just gonna set on these 4. Focus on reducing squalor. Create a ministry of youth from sports and culture that can be included, and it's urgent. It's necessary to have these recreational activities.
It is.
The 3rd one he has here: carry out a geological assessment of the wetlands of the Delta of Belize City and the Keys, and create a frame of action related to squatting and building. Provide low-income housing as an alternative to squatting. And his final, which he has like a long, by the way, a long comment on that one. And his 4th one is set clear, realistic immigration structures and follow them. And they don't sound at all that they would contribute to solution based for crime and violence in Belize, but these are all tied to the social issues that we keep discussing are problematic for foundational structures in society.
Unfortunately, we don't have time to dive into it,
all of
just
that.
as we don't have time to dive into the political expediency component of this conversation. That's also a part of the discussion, getting this thing done just for political mileage, because people they demand that we deal with the crime, and we only got a few years to deal with the crime, and so this is how we want to deal with it. We don't have time for all of that conversation. But Ms.
2018 to
Matura,
now we
final
had
thoughts.
2018
Quickly.
to now we had SOEs and it didn't work. I'll say this on a very more personal note and from a political social aspect. Dean Barrow was the one who introduced all these legislation. He was known as a constitutional luminary, and he could not solve it because he wanted to solve it the hard way. My disappointment, that I will say very public, is that the administration of Johnny Briceño, I never thought that they would have taken this stance, because when they were in opposition, they were totally against it, obviously for political mileage. But my bigger disappointment is that I know Mr. Johnny Briceño personally from I was a teenager. I actually worked at his gas station to make it through sixth form. So I know of him, his family long before. He always came off to me as a more people person, more genuinely concerned for people, while Dean Barrow came off as very arrogant. So I thought that having a leader that came off as a more people person, despite what people have to say about him and his criticism about him, that's the aspect of him that I admired. So I never thought he would be allowing himself to be guided by advisors who is telling him, boy, do this. That is a political suicide. Mr. Briceño, it did not work under the UDP. It will not work under the PUP. You will only make crime worse. What we do when we lock up these men is bring out even harder criminals. Since then, their techniques have gotten worse. The colorlessness has gotten worse, and the age has now dropped to 10, 11-year-olds getting involved. The SOE will not work. What will you do when you put minors under SOE? That is the developmental years when they need guidance.
Yeah,
you spoke about that.
So it's a pity I can't say more because there was so much more I wanted to diagose. If you all invite me back,
yes, you always welcome to come back.
We already heard it in our ear. We're bringing her back.
Yeah, this time gone by so quick. You know, I come ready.
We have some more guests waiting outside.
Tell them come tomorrow.
No.
With that, we're going to take a quick break, April.
Yes, and when we come back, it's all about the latest feature with the Social Security Board's online portal. We'll be right back.